Okay, so we are starting our new chapter, Chapter 2, Section 1, Rational Numbers. Our essential question is, how can you use a number line to order rational numbers? We have a couple of vocab words that I want you to be really familiar with. Our first one is a rational number. We're going to be using this chart a lot as well. So a rational number is a number that can be written as a over b, where a and b are integers, and b does not equal 0. So if you're ever dividing and your denominator is a 0, that's not going to be a rational number. Okay, but any other number as your denominator means it's going to be a rational number. Now, a terminating decimal is a decimal that ends. These are usually the decimals that you are used to: 1.5, negative 0.25, 10.625. A repeating decimal is a decimal that has a pattern that repeats and it will never end. Okay, so instead of writing negative 1.33333333, it would keep going on forever. We are going to put a bar notation over the number that repeats. So 1.3 with the line over the 3, that means the 3 is repeating. Whereas on the bottom, we have 0.151515. Okay, the numbers 1, 5 are repeating, so the bar is going to go over both of those numbers. Okay, so we're going to kind of talk about both those, terminating and repeating. My first question, question A, says write negative 2 1/4 as a decimal. Alright, so the first thing I'm going to do is change this mixed number into an improper number. Alright, so remember, to do that, I'm going to multiply 4 times 2 plus 1. Sorry, let me get you straight here. So 4 times 2 plus 1 gets me 9. So I have 9 over 4. So now I'm going to divide. And when I divide, my denominator is going to go on the outside, and 9 is going to go on the inside. Okay, so I'm going to do long division. So I ask myself, how many times does 4 go into 9? That is 2. 2 times 4 is 8. And I subtract those two. So 9 minus 8 gives me 1. Now I don't have remainders. I'm not going to make this into a numerator. I need to write as decimals because that's what it says. So I'm going to add a decimal behind the 9 and also a 0. Okay. If I add a decimal down here, I'm going to also bring that straight up and put it behind the 2. Okay, so when I do that next, or what I do next is bring down the 0, and I'm going to do this until the decimal either ends, or I get 0, or it repeats. So 4 goes into 10 2 times. I get an 8. Once again, I get a 2, so I need to add another 0. 4 goes into 25 times. 5 times 4 is 20. And my answer is 2.25. But remember, my number was a negative, so I need to make sure I throw on my negative. So my final answer is negative 2.25. Let's look at B. So I have 5 divided by 11. So this is not an improper fraction or a mixed number, so I can just go straight into division. So 11 is going to go on the outside, 5 is going to go on the inside. So 11 does not go into 5, so I put a 0. And then I'm going to put a decimal on a 0. Also bring my decimal straight up. So 11 goes into 50 4 times. 4 times 11 is 44. I subtract, and I get a 6. Once again, add another 0, bring it down. 11 into 60 5 times. Subtracting, get 5. Add another 0. 11 goes into 50 4 times. Okay, so right now I don't have a pattern yet, so let's just keep going. 4 times 11 is 44. 60, 11 goes into 65 times. Okay, at this point, I see that it's just going to keep going 4, 5, 4, 5, 4, 5, 4, 5. All right, so my final answer, I'm going to use the bar notation. So 5/11ths as a decimal is 0.45, and 4, 5 is the number that's repeating. So I'm going to put 4, 5 underneath that bar notation. Okay. So terminating decimal here, repeating decimal over here. On the bottom, we're going to go the other way. We're going to write a decimal as a fraction now. Okay, so when I'm writing decimals as a fraction, I'm going to look at this farthest right number, which is the 6. I need to understand what place value that is in. Okay, so the 6 is in the hundreds place. Remember, it goes tenths, hundredths. So to write this as a fraction, I'm going to put 26 over 100. My answer, remember, is a negative, but it says simplest form, so I got to make sure I simplify this. So these numbers are both even, so I'm going to divide both of those by 2. Bring over my negative, so 26 divided by 2 is 13. 100 divided by 2 is 50, and that will be my final answer. Okay, negative 13 over 50. So remember, just make sure we simplify, make sure we're taking our negative over with it as well. Flip it over to the back. We're going to try one more of these. So now our decimal is negative 10.25. So I still want to write it as a fraction or a mixed number. This one will be a mixed number because I have a whole number. Okay, so I know my answer is going to be negative 10 with some type of fraction. So I'm just going to write that over here. And now I'm just going to worry about the decimal part. So 0.25, the 5 ends in the hundreds place. So I'm going to write 25 over 100. Once again, I got to make sure I simplify. So let's divide both of those by 5. And I'm going to get 1/4. So I'm going to put this 1/4 with my answer, with my whole number. Okay? So when I put it over there, my final answer, just going to write it one last time to make it look a little better, is negative 10 and 1/4. Okay, that is the simplest form of that number. Notice I'm not worried about the 10 until the very end. Okay, I'm only looking at the decimal part. If you want to worry about the 10, it makes things a little bit more complicated, so we're just going to leave it like this. This is probably the shortest way to do it as well. All right, so on the bottom you have 5 problems. Number 1 and 2, you are changing fractions to decimals. Remember, if it repeats, use that bar notation. 3, 4, 5, and 6, you are turning them into fractions or a mixed number. Make sure they are in simplest form. Okay, on your quiz and test, your answers will be marked wrong if they are not in simplest form. Make sure if you have any questions, write them down and we will go over it tomorrow.